there was no doubt. When my time came, I would fall in line. I'd give it all to hear those bells of freedom ring. Well, I was 19 years old when I got the call. Semper Fi, and here I go. And for 2 long years I knew that jungle's heat. But the times in me, we were changing fast. I saw babies, I saw my partners die, while flags back home were burning in the street. I marched young and strong into the fire, moved by faith, courage, fear, and desire. I never guessed that my dreams would go down so hard. Well, it's the changing of the guard. Yeah, the changing of the guard. Taylor.
Sounds good.
Well, it's been years now since I come back home. And time will heal all wounds, they say, but there's no way I can let this go. See, I see my boy looking up to me. I see him working toward his own victories, and he reminds me of a child I used to know. Oh, yeah. I marched young and strong into the fire, moved by faith, courage, fear, and desire. I never guessed that my dreams would go down so hard. Yeah, well, it's the changing of the guard. Yeah, the changing of the guard. Just goes on like that.
All right. Well, welcome to the program here. We got music coming in from everywhere. I don't know where that one's coming from, but
Sounds like a video.
yeah, you probably got it. We're getting play some videos in a while, but I want to thank Lee Jones for coming up from Eugene to play the music. He's a singer-songwriter and working on a documentary, and there's an event coming up at the end of the month, so we're going to have a lot to talk about tonight. But
sir.
welcome to the program, Lee.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
You came up here from Eugene. You live down there, Eugene.
Live in Eugene. My partner in this project lives in Cottage Grove now. We were working long distance for the first couple of years that we got back after we got back together in 2011, and he moved down to Cottage Grove, which is just south of Eugene, back in just about a year and a quarter ago.
Now your partner, his name was Mark
Loskowitz.
He called in. I don't know. It was about I need to dig up that old show on YouTube.
Yeah, that was cool.
And find out when it was,
Yeah.
because I know it's been about a year, and we're going to cover a lot of the same ground. But he was talking about this same Vietnam interview back then. So before that and since then, you're still working on that project, I take it.
Yeah, well, the story is, just giving a little background. We have real different perspectives on life in general, so it's pretty interesting how we managed to come together to be working on this documentary about Vietnam. I was working at a songwriter show. I was running a songwriter showcase up in Washington State, close to where he lived on the Kitsap Peninsula, Bremerton, and all of that stuff on the east side of the Sound. And he was looking for a songwriter to write the soundtrack songs for this film. And he came and saw me and asked me if I would do it.
Did he deliberately pick somebody that you hadn't been to Vietnam, right?
No, I hadn't.
He had deliberately picked somebody that hadn't been there?
He didn't. No, that was not intentional.
Okay.
He liked my songwriting. He liked my voice. We we sound pretty much alike. So he enticed me, and it took a lot of enticement because, and I want to talk about this later. I had like a really, really strong resistance to the idea of learning or thinking about Vietnam.
Let alone glorifying
Period.
it. Huh?
Well, I'm not. We're not.
Well,
glorifying
glorifying this aspect of it's the warriors, not the war that you're.
No, we're not even glorifying the warriors. Yeah, we don't glorify anything. We just we're just talking about what it was like.
I'm kind of glad to hear that.
Oh no, there's no, there's absolutely not a political bone in this, and it's like
That's
I'm
even
not,
better.
Yeah, I'm not a rah-rah guy in any way, and Mark is, I mean, that song is the closest thing we get to an autobiographical tune about Mark, and he went through that whole progression.
As a Marine.
As a Marine, he came home and joined Veterans for Peace, or whatever Vietnam Veterans Against the War, and was active in that for a short while. They wanted to use his photographs just as anti-war stuff, and he was like, no, I want to show what it was like being over there. And so he's had this problem, ever since he got back, this challenge, I should say, with finding an avenue to get this stuff out.
And not in an avenue of anti-war, just an avenue of education.
Right, just a straight documentary. I mean, initially he was, back in the day, it was focusing really heavily on his story. And when we wrote this stuff, I said, people don't want to hear one person's story that much. I mean, your perspective is huge in the photographs. I mean, this is our photo book. We'll talk about that later. Where are we here?
And we have some of those photos too. Hopefully we can play some of them up.
Yeah, we just published this thing a year and a quarter ago. And I had, after the soundtrack was written in 1992, it's called War Speak now, it's on CD. After we had finished this thing, we parted ways and didn't talk to each other for like 7 years.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, we're political, spiritual opposites. I was a conscientious objector. I signed up to be tried to get a conscientious objector status. Was
Tough to do.
turned down on that, and managed. I mean, I got out of high school in '72 at the age of 17. So my the draft was gearing down right then. I would have gone to Canada. And my dad was an Air Force guy. I mean, he was a colonel when he retired. Flew B-17s navigated B-17s out of England, and he worked for the Rand Corporation, which is where Daniel Ellsberg, the Pentagon Papers, worked.
Wow.
He knew Dan Ellsberg. My dad was in Saigon working for Rand during the Tet Offensive. When Saigon got surrounded and all the major cities got surrounded and bombarded and in many cases overrun by VC.
That was a real coup.
But he said, my older brother and my dad said, no, you guys are not going to Vietnam. He was like, and he was Air Force colonel, So.
Well, he knew the ropes.
Yeah. So the thing that happened to me, and this is something I was suffering from without knowing it, what I've come to be calling referring to as the Vietnam hangover, which was these residual feelings about those days, 1968, 1969, 1970. I'm 14, 15, 16 years old in that time, and I'm living in Southern California, right on the coast, and it's a pretty the winds are changing big time, and by the time the Vietnam War was over, I was looking at Vietnam veterans askance. I was looking at them like, you bastards, why did you do that, you suckers,
Because they were drafted.
Well, yeah, there's a reason for it, but once again, I was 16 years old, so it's like it doesn't have to make sense.
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah, and so
I can dig
so
that,
the thing is, I think a lot of people, and I firmly believe this. In fact, based on, I've been trying to get my progressive friends. Most of my friends are liberals, Democrats, left-leaning folk. To look at this stuff ever since I've been involved in it, and most of them just won't even touch it. They won't even engage.
It's just so far in the past because
No, I think it's just so painful. I think I think the associations around Vietnam and Kennedy getting assassinated, Martin Luther King getting assassinated, that whole time hurts so much in people's collective consciousness that a lot of people just don't even want to really learn anything about it or know anything about it.
And the whole thing about Vietnam kind of colors everything.
Oh man, it was a turning
That's
point.
part of the hangover.
It's a huge turning point. And so the thing that in 2010 when Mark and I decided, based on his urgings once again, he says, this is really now what I really want this project to do now is to aim us toward aim other veterans toward communicating with one another, because all of the research on effective modalities of treatment for PTSD involve talking. One-on-one counseling, group counseling, hanging out with veteran buddies, and being able to talk to civilians like your family and stuff, and being able to kind of you can't block it and hope you're going to get over it.
And that's just I know when you would go to exert yourself, the first impulse is to hold your breath, and that's exactly what they're doing in the matter of speaking. Is they're shutting down and isolating.
Right. Right. So these live events that we do, these live performances of the multimedia documentary thing, we show some videos. We'll be showing some videos here soon from the snippets that are going to be in the full-length film, and we do some of the live music, and Mark does some of some reads from his memoir, and then we spend time talking with the veterans and whoever else is in the audience. About what, who's, and it doesn't always go well, but generally it does. There's some guy out there who is a Vietnam veteran who's willing to say, yeah, I went about 20 years and this PTSD from Vietnam seemed to really sink in about 10 to 15 years after they got back. That's when the tailspin really got bad for a whole lot of guys.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's when this Agent Orange started hitting people too.
That too, yeah. And so it's the really cool thing is that we've run into guys who the last time we played in Salem, in fact, we played at Bookbin East. And there was a guy there who was 70 years old, and he had been working all of his life. He was a Vietnam vet, and he had never had any problems with stress, memories of Vietnam or anything, until he stopped working. He was a workaholic. And when he stopped working, his relationship with his wife, who'd been with him for decades, as I recall, just went. Started, going down the drain.
Unraveling.
Yeah, going down the drain, and he had to go into counseling, and he went into his one-on-one counseling and then small group counseling, and by the time he was at this event with us, he was like, "Yeah, I feel better than I've actually felt in about 50 years."
Didn't know it.
And didn't know it. Yeah, exactly, like the holding your breath thing you're talking about. So,
yeah.
So Mark, once again, doubling back to how he got me back into this project, is talking about making it, the focus of the project is to get the dialogue about Vietnam back up and really encourage it among veterans, with their families, among veterans with, civilians, among veterans with each other. There's, the stat, right? There's 22 suicides
a day
among veterans, So that was enough to get me back into the game with that as the that as the focus. And Mark, the backstory on this, Mark, when he was in Vietnam, made 4,000 photographs and lots of hours of 8mm home movie film and some Super 8 stuff, and wrote hundreds of letters home to his mom, and she saved all these letters. And so he has this amazing catalog of what it was like being at a fire support base for his first tour in the Marines. He volunteered, and then he volunteered after getting a Dear John letter right toward the end of his first tour. He volunteered to extend his tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll show her, right?
Yeah.
And so he extended his tour and joined Fox 25, which was an infantry unit that went out into the bush and they were a very well-known infantry unit for kicking butt, as he put it.
Yeah, and losing members too, probably.
They had lost half of their platoon the day before he joined Fox 25, and the day that he joined them that night, and everybody in the camp was just surly as all hell. And the next day they went down to the village and said, "Where are the guys?" And the mama-sans and the kids said, "We don't know. We didn't see them." And they of course yelled, BS, and they took the tanks and ran over the entire village. And that was the start. They got everybody out. Mark was never part of one of those My Lai things.
Yeah.
Never part of one of those things. His commanding officers played by the books. Except for the flattening the village part, But they were hiding the guys. They knew where they were, and they had just lost half their platoon. So that was when Mark's story and his commanding officer both said that was when Mark's PTSD was born. And he wrote a piece about it called "Dear Mom, today the war stopped being a game." When he saw all these homes being destroyed and these people screaming and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so.
men, women, and children, the whole.
No men. There were no men in the village.
That's. I know the Iraq. There's nothing good about Iraq War, but one thing it did do is it did kind of fluff back up Vietnam back into people's minds, and people started realizing all these residual feelings that you were talking about. And it's not necessarily just the soldiers either, just the people.
Right.
Because it was such a terrible time,
Right.
and. In some ways, it was a great time because the American people stood up, and some of them got killed. Can't state, in a few places that it was a terrible time, and that hangover. I think it probably still exists today, and it's going to probably always exist to some degree.
Yeah. I mean, I'll put this out there. This is a bizarre, request and thought, but so what? There's a slice of the American public, the left cognoscenti especially, who think that, and there's been a book on the subject, and I'm not going to name it nor the author because I think it's complete crap.
It's a good name for it.
Yeah, well, yeah. That says that the physical harassment of Vietnam veterans at the airports, and on the streets of especially the West Coast, but also Chicago, Philly, and the East Coast, didn't ever happen. That there was never any, crosswords or spitting or throwing stuff. And we have a Facebook page where we have 7,000 roughly veterans and interested parties on there. They're mainly Vietnam veterans. And I put the question out the other day because I think that this is it's an interesting point, and it bears discussion. It's like, how many of you guys actually got spit on, or had stuff thrown at you, or physically harassed in some other way? And what the breakdown kind of went from, well, some of us made it through the airports on the West Coast and went to our homes in Omaha and whatnot, and we were welcomed back. We didn't have parades, but there might have been some bunting on the house or something, and our families, we had parties and they welcomed us back. The large proportion of guys who came back were on the receiving end of a lot of interesting looks, bad kind of, people moving away from them, many of them were told during this certain stretch of time there, 69, 70, 71, to just lose their military gear as soon as they could, so they're not identifying themselves in the airports as, veterans coming home from Vietnam. Because what that final quarter of these guys who responded, and there are hundreds of them, said, yeah, I mean, somebody would just walk by and spit on my shirt on the way by. They wouldn't say anything. They'd just spit on my feet. They spit on my shirt. Lady would come up and slap me in the face.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
No.
Baby killer. I mean, that whole thing.
Oh.
And so I'm wondering, as part of this healing thing, we've got the veterans who are like, they've been, most of these guys they're on our site talking. They share stories and they're talking about it. And some guys are really irritated and just say, I don't want to talk about this stuff. You know, why am I even here? It's like, I don't know, why are you even here?
Yeah.
What I don't think has ever come out is, and I mean, if your audience is who I think they are, you probably have people in your audience, and certainly around Portland, who were there at some of those airports and took part in some of those violent encounters with Vietnam veterans. And I want to hear from somebody who actually did it. This will take a tremendous amount of courage for people, because to say you were spit on is one thing, but to say, yeah, I was actually a guy who spit on these guys, and I did it 3 or 4 times. You know, I want to hear from somebody.
Now, what would be the best way people could connect up? I mean, we could put up your website.
The website's the easiest way to
All
get
right,
us.
we'll get
I
that
mean,
website up, and also they can get to your Facebook page from your
Our
website.
Facebook page is, you know, if you search for Vietnam and Interview on Facebook, it'll pop up. It's all, you know, it kind of lights
It
up
all
pretty
kind of
good.
works in together.
Yeah.
But so have you had somebody contact you and say they were the spitter?
This is my
rather
first.
than the
This is my
spittee?
first time of putting it out,
Putting it out.
publicly, aside from on my Facebook page. And like I said, my Facebook friends and my progressive pals, you know, they don't even want to talk about it. Most of them didn't live on the West Coast anyway. So, you know, I think, you know, I've been thinking about running ads in the San Francisco Chronicle or something. But maybe this, and when we go on OPB next week, maybe we can just mention it over there
That
too.
would be a good idea.
I mean,
sure.
I think it's like, yeah, to me it's like the ultimate insult to Vietnam veterans, that there's a large proportion. This guy teaches college, this guy that wrote this book.
wrote the book?
Yeah, it's a required reading at this college that he's at. And it's like, it's really irritating. 'Cause what, you know, you got 200 guys, I'm just making up this number, but hundreds, at least 100 guys on our Facebook page, you know, giving varying versions of the same thing. You know, people were trying to hit us with stuff. You know, stewardesses having to wipe stuff off of my back. You know, spit off of my back that I didn't even know was there when we got on the next plane. You know, why would 65 and 70-year-old guys lie about this?
And you're coming from a place where you were anti-war.
I'm
But you're pro-people.
I'm like I'm a pro-people person.
Yeah.
I'm a science guy. I like the truth, you know. And what we're doing here is just telling the truth. We wrote songs. I mean, the film is going to be the coolest thing in the world, because I've never seen a documentary where it's like it's built around original music. And maybe we should spin one, because
I'm just thinking, we've been talking. We're 34 minutes left of the program, so yeah. Which one did you want them to play up?
Let's do the brand new one. This has got a couple of little bloopers in it, but this is called Martians in the Wire, and it's built on the song Into the Golden Hour, which is our, when we recorded the album, where am I? I'm over here. We wrote all of these songs to tell different stories about the experience, you know, the camaraderie, the first days of arriving in Vietnam, you know, going on leave, getting the Dear John letter. And this one is about if you weren't on the front lines and the sun was going down, there was a very good chance that someone near you, at least in the late 60s, was getting high, and then it would get dark. So,
all right, the name of this one was what now?
Into the Golden Hour.
All right, Into the Golden Hour. I think it's what, 5 minutes maybe, something like that.
Yeah, and it's got it features a whole bunch of the guys that Mark served with. Yeah.
All right.
Sit back, relax, and let your mind unwind as we roll you into the golden hour. Sit back, relax, and let your mind unwind as we roll you into the golden.
Favorite time? Finishing a day's hump and setting up. It's words of, you know, okay, we're gonna stop here, and this will be where we're spending the night. That was always kind of nice because you got to stop. You knew it was gonna be a little. If you were fortunate, you had quiet time, kind of.
What it was slack time in Vietnam, or the golden hour in Vietnam.
This was a time you could relax.
I would take a break for a while and maybe get a chance to get a letter out and of course bullshit with the guys and talk and have a few cigarettes and stuff.
We would all gather in a bunker, sit on top when the weather was really nice, or sit inside with candles, sitting and talking.
And if we weren't filling sandbags, we had times that we would sit around and guys would talk about their families.
Finally, the packs were down. Everybody was kind of settling in for the night, and it was fun to go to the various positions and talk to people and just ask them how they're doing and what they see, or how the foxhole is, and anything you might want to talk about that would interest them.
Sometimes there would be card playing if we had enough candles, and the sergeant didn't want us to put them all out.
It would always be on my mind before it got dark. I'd have to start getting my together to do what I would have to do for that night.
Time to write letters and kind of get the hooches going, and kind of rap and wait for darkness. Darkness was always kind of the scary time. It was kind of the unknown time. You slept kind of half with one eye open in a way.
The big thing in Vietnam was a flick. They weren't the greatest movies. They weren't movies that were made that year or the year before. It was 10 years old, some of these movies. So that particular night, we all gathered, and guys that weren't on watch or on the OPs, and we go down to see the movie. And the movie is about Frankenstein and these aliens. And we're watching this movie, and Frankenstein's attacking people, and he attacked these people and attacked this woman, and they were screaming. And then the aliens came, and the aliens were after people and Frankenstein, and it was like an utter chaos, mass confusion type thing. But the whole thing was the screaming that was going on in the movie. Ah! Woo! Ah! So we watched this freaking movie, and it was really funny, but it was intense. And here we are in the middle of nowhere. So I had to go on watch that night at 12 o'clock at night. And we had to go out to an OP. And I went with a guy named Joey.
Sit back, relax, and let your mind unwind as we roll you into the golden hour.
And now we're out on the OP. Beautiful, clear night. Artillery is going off. Boom, boom. The H&Is were going out. Then it got quiet, and we're out there. Now it's 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning. It's quiet as can be. And we're talking about the flick. And it was saying, you think there are aliens out there? And we got ourselves so intense with this alien stuff, that these aliens are going to come down and get us, that it was like we were in the movie. We're out there, and all of a sudden we hear this screaming sound, and I remember him going, aliens! And he opened up out there. He's shooting, so I started shooting. The guys in the OP next to us started shooting. The other guys on the other side started shooting. Throwing handguns, ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. The gunny comes scrawling, what do you got? What do you got? Ceasefire, what do you got? Martians, there's Martians. I told the freaking gunny that they were Martians. He went, Martians? You're watching too many movies.
All officers are invited
got up, he kicked the dirt, and he walked down the bottom of the freaking hill. I remember coming down, and Master Gunnery Sergeant Kelleher was top. What in the was that last night? And I said, we thought we heard something. The gunny said you saw Martians. And Joey said, it sounded like Martians to us. He says, how the you know what a Martian sounds like? We saw the movie, Top. He says, you two are
This is your friend Hanoi Hen speaking to you on Radio Hanoi. We wish to show you we want to be your friends, not fight you. You should be home with your wife and girlfriends. Jody is with her right now. They are having a good time together while you are away from home.
How short are you, man? 14 days in the wake up, man. I will DD now. I'm gonna sky out of here on a freedom bird back to the world.
I miss you so much, baby. I dream of being with you every day and every night. Oh, your friend Jody says to say hi. No, I gotta run.
everybody in the compound that night. The next 2 days were talking about, pointing at us, hit a Martian. Guys, shoot that Martian. Shoot that Martian. Even the colonel made a comment when we were in the bunker one day, and he passed me and he says, "Brennan, Martians, huh?" And then I remember one of the young lieutenants coming in. He says, "Do those Martians, do they smell? They smell any different than people?" They were breaking our balls left and right about Martians, but who knows? I might have killed a couple out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see, we're not back yet, though.
That's where we'll be in 9 days. Salem, Oregon, Vagabond Brewing, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's on our website.
Right. So you're talking about there's music, and then you interact with the audience.
Yeah, we do. We show a bunch of film segments we don't really have that syncing problem. We were showing that video just now off of the internet, so the audio and the visuals were not exactly synced up.
That happens, yeah.
But yeah, so we show videos and we show photographs from slides from Thousand Yard Stare. We're over here now. Which we have some of the photos that we can show here. We play some of the music live. Mark and I are both, he got his master's in arranging and composition, so that's why he needed a songwriter back in the day. So he plays bass, I play guitar, we have another guitar player, and we're doing a full concert with my guitar player after that show too at Vagabond, so it's like 4 hours of fun documentary stuff and then fun Americana.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, it was a horrible time, but it doesn't mean that the people can't have fun.
Well, that's really one of the things that I guess we're trying to do with this. The photo book is really amazing because Mark was in combat, so he was not a photojournalist. He didn't have the luxury of taking photographs when anything was going on. combat-wise, because he was actually in the fighting. He was a forward artillery observer, which means he was spotting for.
So this was all R&R time.
This was everything except for combat, and so it gives the book and the film both give really compassionate insight. You know, just eyes wide open, compassionate look at what it was like being there. Period. You know, no judgment, just like what was going on. You know, so that's why we are really happy. Actually, our publisher, Stackpole Books, just got picked up by Maugan. I believe it's called Maugan Littlefield, which has a huge academic and education component to their publishing distribution. And we think that, you know, this is library, you know, university library kind of material as well. For, and the film will be as well, and Mark's memoir when it gets finished. Yeah.
I understand you've also got a few photos you picked out.
Oh yeah, we threw some photos onto a flash drive. We could put those up and talk about them for a second.
Talk about them a little bit. Now these are photos right from Vietnam.
Yeah.
In the 60s.
These are straight out of the photo book, 1,000 Yard Stare, and.
Here we go. Oh, a little porn, huh?
Well, yeah. This is just a moment of levity there. That'll be at. I don't know who that other fellow. Oh yeah, I do. Doesn't matter.
So one of them is Mark.
Mark is there on the right. Yeah, he's already gone bald. So this is his maybe second or probably second tour, maybe third tour with Fox 25.
So.
Yeah. There's not much to say about that photograph.
He didn't take all the pictures.
No, he would hand his camera to.
All right.
He would hand his camera to somebody else.
So, I guess they're working on the pictures here next. There's I mean, you had a lot of them on that flash drive. I was going through some of them. My gosh, it's you know, you could chronicle a lot about Vietnam just from those pictures alone, even though he wasn't necessarily doing that as a. As a correspondent or whatever the term would be.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. We got another one up there.
Okay, so
that's just some of the local people.
Yeah, this is a shot that was taken during Operation Mead River when they were in this platoon was instructed to. This was not a free fire zone. A free fire zone was where there were hostiles. Known to be nearby, and these guys who were doing it by the book, like I mentioned, his captain and then Lieutenant Dave Brown, they would go into the villages and they'd get all the women and children and old ladies and very few old men out of the village, and then they would and out of the free fire zone, and then proceed to, you know, torch the village or dig around, and, you know. In this case, it was not a free fire zone. This was they were going through villages and looking for caches of rice, because a lot of the villagers were stashing rice for the VC. And so this guy is actually taking some of the rice that is deemed to be excess, and the mom there is yanking on him, trying to stop him from taking it. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be, you know, after you leave and you're a couple years down the road, I can see how this could cause some trauma to people, knowing that, you know, you're taking food from babies there, even though they say they're not. They're, you know darn good and well that there was some hunger going on there.
Right. Well, the thought was what these guys were attempting to do, according to Mark, was they left plenty behind, but they took what seemed to be, you know, just a ridiculous oversupply. Plus, it was buried.
Yeah.
You know.
That I never even thought about that. You always think about the war crimes of killing people and all, but just stomping on their villages and taking their food. I'm sure that they did a lot of that when it was innocent people too, probably.
Oh yeah.
It's hard not to, like they're kicking indoors in Iraq when there's, you know, and drone killing wedding parties and things.
Yep.
That's what happens. This is a nice shot.
Yeah, this is just a different platoon that went by, and Mark doesn't know who any of these fellas were, but this was the rainy season, and this guy managed to have a smile on his face, even though he's one of the radio operators.
Probably
obviously.
soaked to the skin.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah. And you can see a rice paddy behind him there, and yeah, that's just a nice shot. I like that guy's face.
I hope that guy knows who he is, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah, that guy on the right there with all those all the machine gun, probably. Well, that's terrible. What was done over there on both sides.
Well, you know, and it became apparent. Well, as I said, my dad was working for the Rand Corporation. He was interrogating VC defectors and prisoners of war, mainly VC defectors, and you know, he briefed General Westmoreland in, it would have been '68, and told him, you know, based on, you know, the Rand report, said, you know, these guys, they'll flip sides. They'll join the ARVN, the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. That's the South Vietnamese Army. They'll jump back over to the VC. Whoever's paying the checks, you know, they don't care. They're in their homeland. They're rooted to their place, and there's no way they're leaving.
Probably for thousands of years. Too.
Exactly. And Ho Chi Minh was a national hero, and you know, he was isolated up in the north. As you know, as some of your viewers and you may know, Ho Chi Minh was actually trying to negotiate with the U.S. to have some sort of normalization of relations, you know, and instead we inserted Tim. Anyway, we don't really talk politics in the film or in the project.
But it's still good to know that there was a lot going on behind the scenes that the American people didn't know.
Yeah. My dad was, like I said, in Saigon during that time, and he couldn't talk about most of what happened. Obviously, it was all pretty hush hush. You know, I did have this. We do when we start our live event. I'll tell this story because it's really pertinent to this idea of venting or sharing, you know, as a means of healing, right? My dad never told war stories. Never. He was a navigator, flew lots of missions over France and Belgium and Germany. You know, 40 or so missions, way more than you were supposed to. And he saw a lot of bad things happen to other planes, people in his own planes.
Getting strafed by...
Yeah, getting their heads blown off and stuff like that. Yeah. His you know, there was you know, this one mission, the Schweinfurt bombing mission. He was in the lead plane, and the whole nose of the plane got blown open. So, but they survived that. Some of them did. I would sleep on my dad's floor when I was 4 years old. No, I'm sorry, in about the 4th grade, so about 10 or 11 years old. I would sleep in my parents' bedroom because I was having scary dreams, right? So they let me come in there and sleep on the floor. And my dad would get up in the middle of the night, and he would be walking around his room talking about birds coming in at 2 o'clock, birds coming in at 11 o'clock, and he'd go over to his dresser, and he's like fumbling with his keys and stuff, and he's just really agitated. And it's like, I was just scared. That scared me badly.
I'll bet.
Yeah. And
no
it's
reality
like,
check there.
Those are the first war stories I ever heard out of him, was when he was sound asleep. You know, one of the really great things about this project now, you know, 2 of the guys that you saw in that film, this is not the great part. 2 of those guys who were in that film have since committed suicide. Mark interviewed them in 1995 with a PBS crew, those guys who were doing the talking at the start of that last video. They're in all of our videos, and they're all just really wonderful characters. 2 of them have committed suicide in the last 10 years. 2 other ones, plus Mark, are in this kind of group of Vietnam veterans who, you know, not an atypical group, who, you know, still aren't very well adjusted, you know, getting by, but drinking a lot, or, you know, doing a lot of stuff.
50 years
you know,
later, man.
Irritated, you know, terminally, you know, ticked off at the government or the VA. And then 3 of the guys, one of them is the executive director of the Museum of the Marine. He became a lieutenant colonel before he retired in the USMC. Another one, Dennis Cadigan, became a nationally known clinical psychologist specializing in PTSD, identification and treatment. And we just went back and interviewed him just last month. Actually, we didn't go back. We did a long distance interview on video. He lives in New Jersey, and he's shed a whole bunch of light on how treatment of PTSD has really come along in the last 20 years after the ridiculous reentry protocol that they had for Vietnam veterans, which was come in, get on the plane, get on the bus, go hit your connecting flight, and see you later.
Yeah.
Right. Good luck, guys.
Well, now they can. I just read on Facebook or somewhere that the government has passed some kind of thing where VA doctors are allowed to prescribe, or at least not get in the way of cannabis being prescribed for the PTSD, which has been really helpful to a lot of folks.
It's like, duh.
Yeah, I know. A little bit slow on the uptake there.
Right.
But I know they passed that here in Oregon a while back, that PTSD was a qualifying condition.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, another interesting thing, and I didn't read specifically about that, but that makes all the sense in the world, is Dave Brown, who's became the lieutenant colonel, said that over the past number of years, the USMC, the Marine Corps, has changed lots of stuff about how deployments work. And what happened with Mark was he met a bunch of guys, in boot camp, and he met a bunch of different guys when he joined his platoon or his units, and then he flew home by himself, not with his unit, and then went home. And so what they do now is deploy as a unit, where they all train together, they all go over, and instead of doing 13 months, which was the Macho Marine thing, 13 months instead of a 12-month tour, they, I think, top out at 7 months. You can't go more than 7 months. And you can't extend your tour. I mean, that is, in retrospect, it's kind of like a catch-22 thing in reverse. It's like, just by definition, isn't extending your tour, doesn't that sort of mean that something's wrong? Unless you're loving life out there in the jungle, which some guys apparently, some guys thought they were doing the right thing. A lot of guys, those guys who joined the Marines in the 64, 65, 66, they were brought up in the 50s. They were patriotic. They thought they were doing the right thing.
Well, you didn't get drafted into the Marines, though. Drafted into the Army.
No, you had to volunteer.
So that's what I was thinking. So that's a whole different mindset.
Yeah, it is. It is. And Mark said, that he enlisted in 67. If it had been 1970, and he had been around when all of that stuff was going on, where it came to light what was happening in Vietnam, he says, I'm not sure I would have enlisted. It's just the luck of the draw, and if you got your number picked, and it's amazing time in history, and I really hope that we have some people come to the Vagabond show, Vagabond Brewing. It's a great brewery down in Salem.
There's another picture there.
Yeah, that's a nice one. On Vagabond on the 29th, the event starts at 4 o'clock.
It's a week from this Sunday.
It's a week from this Sunday.
Yeah.
It's the weekend of Memorial Day, and I hope civilians will come in and see this thing. People of our generation, especially, who might have been suffering through watching this show, even just because it brings up all those feelings that have not been addressed. And there's a lot of healing that can happen hanging out with veterans. I love talking to veterans now. I talk to these guys from Vietnam all the time, and it's really it's an honor to me, frankly. I'm not like a guy that says any veteran is a hero. You join the Army, that doesn't make you a hero in my book. It makes you, like,
especially if you're drafted.
You're getting a job. You're doing a job, and you've got, who knows. If you do something exemplary that scares the crap out of you and you still do it, that's heroic. Going into a burning building, that's heroic.
Or saving your friends or your buddies or whatever.
Yeah.
That there was something on there, I forget, there was something up there.
Buffalo Romeo.
Buffalo Romeo. Is that a band?
That's my duo, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have a friend named Keenan Dorn, young guy, great guitar player, ridiculous guitar player. We have a duo, we call it Adventures in Americana. And so, the Vietnam documentaries, it starts at 4:30. We're going to have some Meet the Producers stuff at 4 o'clock there. at Vagabond, and then at 6:30, Keenan and I, Buffalo Romeo, are going to do a 2-set concert.
All right.
And we do a lot of classic country and bluegrassy stuff from the, 60s, 70s anyway. So.
All right, that's great. So,
yeah.
look at this. We got another picture because I know we're getting down to the last 7 minutes and running out of pictures.
I can do one more tune if you like. I've
Sure,
got
we
another
can do
song.
that.
Yeah.
What is this? Is this a shot in
This
Vietnam?
is a shot out of a helicopter.
Those are
there's-
rice paddies?
Yeah, those are rice paddies. Yeah, terraced fields and rice paddies, and there's a convoy, a U.S. Army or Marine convoy, going by on that road in the back there.
Mm-hmm.
Huge convoy. Yeah, I mean Mark and all of the guys who comment on it are just like, yeah, Vietnam is just a ridiculously gorgeous country. Just amazingly pretty.
I've never experienced jungle, so that put that thing. Yeah, that's a good idea because its sound came really well just putting that on the table there.
Yeah.
So we're going to do another tune here.
Why not?
Why not? We still got 6 minutes, so.
Yeah. This is a short tune. We wrote this song. I talked to Mark's wife at length about being married to him. Like I said, each song tells a different facet of the experience of having been in Vietnam. This one is about coming home, and
Yeah.
you can play with that for a
Yeah.
about coming home and having PTSD issues. Essentially, it's called Loaded Gun.
All right, but nobody even knew about PTSD back then.
It didn't have a name.
Yeah.
It's from the point of view of the spouse of a veteran.
Oh.
Deep in your eyes shines a light, and you're afraid that if you let it show, it might blind you. You move like a ghost, touching down. Stay close to the door and always keep an eye behind you. Haunted by dreams you can't outrun. Now you share your bed with a loaded gun. Turn into me, you reach out, you touch me and tell me I'm the one you need beside you. Yeah, but life slips away while you hold tight to the days that you can't seem to leave behind you. You ask me to be your only one. Now I share my bed with a loaded gun. What can I give? All I pray is that someday you'll come around and see it's me behind you. You ask me to be your only one. Yeah, now I share my bed with a loaded gun. Look at the joy, see it shine. It's softly shining in our baby's eyes. She has your eyes.
All right, I like that one too.
Yeah, it's called Loaded Gun.
So these are all, you do the writing though, right?
Well, we co-wrote these.
Co-wrote it?
We refer to it as having co-written. He wrote one outright. I wrote a couple outright, and I wrote most of the melodies and the lyrics. But we did a lot of editing of the lyrics together, and the main thing was we spent 6 months talking about Vietnam, a solid 6 months talking about Vietnam.
Before you even started writing?
Before we even started writing music, yeah.
So we're down to a little over 2 minutes here. So
Cool.
Told you it went fast.
I know, right?
That's what everything, everybody says, oh, what are we going to do with that whole hour? Well,
I really appreciate this opportunity. Like I said, we're going to be on the radio on OPB on this coming Friday, the 27th at noon on the Think Out Loud show. So,
all right.
Mark will be in the studio up there and wherever this is in Portland.
That'll be listed on your website.
Right. All this stuff is on our website.
There's your. Might mention that all out again. What that's all about.
Yeah. One more time. We'll do a live multimedia presentation of the film, and a whole lot of slides and readings from Mark's memoir, and a lot of video clips. We just saw just one of them,
Just
I guess.
one of them. Yeah, we were going to do a little more, but time just got away.
No, it's cool. I wanted to show you that new one because it's a psychedelic tune, and it's brand new. It's still got some little edit issues in it, but
and you'll be showing some of those.
So we'll be showing a whole raft of those. It's about an hour and a half long show, and it involves, like I said, discussion and question and answer, and generally we have some very insightful, thought-provoking commentary from veterans and or daughters or sons or wives, sweethearts of veterans. Some people show up who lost people in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. And, I know I lost a cousin. I didn't know him hardly at all, but everybody lost somebody, I think.
So if I guess I just am really going to repeat it one more time. Encourage people who have those raw feelings about Vietnam. A lot of people just still don't want to engage, don't want to think about it, don't want to talk about it. This is a really gentle, compassionate way to look at what happened and try to get beyond the politics and the memories of those horrendous years, which were so painful for so many people.
So many people. We got 30 seconds here, so.
Right on.
Well,
thanks,
burying them.
Thanks
like
for
that.
watching. Thank you, Jim.
All right. Burying those things, they just fester. They don't go away.
Yep.
And so that needs to be taken care of. I wanted to thank the crew. We only had a little over half an hour, 45 minutes to put this together. We had a lot of things to bring on and talk about.
Heck of a job.
We did. They did a good job on that.
What a team.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week.
Happy Friday.